Marshal William O'Neill goes to the titanium mines located on Jupiter's satellite Io, because people live there for only 10 months and then die, and he has to find out why. In the not-too-distant future, humanity is exploring Jupiter's third satellite, Io. Nearby there is a space station from where a shuttle with supplies arrives to the planet once a week. Living conditions are quite harsh because there are no suitable conditions for human life, so miners are forced to work in large spacesuits. The lifespan is 1 Earth year, and despite the long term, the wages are also big. On one of the regular shifts, the miners are working, discussing the harsh working conditions and the inadequacy of the contracts. One of the men suddenly starts screaming and asking for a spider to be removed from him. His comrades try to help, but he behaves inadequately, which leads to tragedy. The guy falls off and falls into outer space. Federal Marshal William O'Neill is assigned to the Io and finds nothing better to do than fly here with his wife and son. The day after the miner's death, he hears reports from his subordinates. No one thinks it was a criminal death. They think it was just a mental breakdown, and there were witnesses nearby. The company intends to send the body home on today's shuttle, and the tickets his spouse ordered are waiting for her at the transportation office. William interjects about the tickets, but the wife says she has to help the neighbors. The man immediately forgets about it and goes to work. He introduces himself to the staff, and Mark Shepard, the mine's general manager, reminds them that they work hard, which is why the miners' productivity is breaking all records, and he expects the same from the new chief of police. William begins to study the work and life of the staff when the next tragedy occurs. One of the miners, not wearing a spacesuit, enters the elevator and goes to the lower level, where there is no atmosphere, and of course only the remains reach the end. At this time, William returns home and learns that his wife has decided to leave Io with their son. The woman feels she is unable to raise a child inside a sealed environment and wants to return to Earth where she can go out into the open and breathe fresh air. They have often talked about it, but William is too responsible with appointments and is oblivious to her and her son's desires. So she leaves for the space station to await the next flight to Earth. The next day, the marshal goes to work and hears the report of yesterday's death. But again, there is nothing to indicate the criminality of the events. The guy got into the elevator by himself and pushed the button himself. Still, William goes to the local doctor, Marian Lazarus, a woman of stern and frank judgment. She talks frankly about how the miners' work is too hard, which is why they often go insane. Marshal asks her to prepare a report on such incidents over the past 6 months. Sergeant Monton, learning of Marshal's wife's departure, tries to calm the man down and shares his family problems. His wife has also run away from him to the programmer because he is home all the time. After seeing his subordinate off, William reenacts his wife's conversion, but then he is called to the scene. One of the miners, in an incomprehensible psychotic fit, takes the girl hostage and threatens to stab her. William tries to calm her down by negotiating through the door while Sergeant Monton enters the room through the ventilation system and kills the man with a shotgun blast the moment William opens the locked door. Marshal is unhappy that he did not have time to talk to the criminal properly, but the sergeant writes off his shot in self-defense because the miner had a knife in his hands. The girl is sent to the hospital and Lazarus examines the victim, while Marshal sees the report prepared for him. It turns out that in the last 6 months there have been 28 such cases, and in the previous 6 months there were only 2 cases. But the doctor can't explain it. The dead bodies are buried in space, so there's no way to test them. But the last corpse is still here, so William finds it and takes a blood sample, which he brings to the doctor. Marian analyzes the deceased's blood and finds traces of an illegal substance in it. This substance allows efficient laborers to work in the mines, earning bonuses and high wages, until they become psychopaths. The lifespan of such a worker after starting to take the drug is about 10 months. It is impossible to manufacture it in the mine, so it is definitely being smuggled in. William begins to investigate and soon comes across one of the dealers, whose hiring was approved personally by Shepard. The second suspect, Russell, has a previous conviction for delivering substances. Later, while playing tennis with Monton, William starts asking him uncomfortable questions. The sergeant admits that he just looks away because he can't stand up to the company boss. Marshal advises him not to get involved in his investigation. Through the security cameras, Spot is tracked down, after a chase through the complex and a fierce fight in the kitchen, where Spot tries to dispose of a bag of the substance by throwing it into boiling soup. Marshal arrests the dealer. William demands information, but Spot says nothing. Marshal orders that no one be allowed near the cell. When Shepard summons him, he offers William a bribe because he believes he is doing a good deed, increasing the company's profits, and he intends to continue his activities, for which he offers a decent sum. But the honest Marshal refuses and later finds Spot's corpse in the cell. To make matters worse, someone strangles Montan and stows the corpse in a closet. But before he dies, the sergeant manages to send him a message with 2 words: food supply. Marshal goes to the food department, and while inspecting the frozen meat, he is attacked by Spot's accomplice, Russell. William uses cunning, pretending to be dead, overpowers the bandit, and destroys the shipment of substances. When Shepard learns of this, he threatens Marshal with imminent death, then contacts his supplier and asks him to send professional assassins to get rid of William. Marshal listens in on Shepard's conversations and learns that the company is unhappy with such dealings and threatens his boss if he can't stop Marshal's activities. A pair of top assassins are sent to help him, arriving by shuttle on Sunday. Shepard assures him that no one will stand up for Marshal, as people value jobs and lives. Apparently, news of this is spreading around the mine, because people are looking at William with pity and interest. It is 60 hours until the shuttle arrives when William calls Sergeant Ballard, who has become a sergeant, and the latter says that none of the police officers will support the chief. Later, William is playing tennis with himself when Dr. Lazarus arrives. She is the only one of the station staff who is willing to support him, but wants to find out why he needs to. Does he really think he's a hero? The man admits that he wants justice. In this tense wait, he contacts his wife and son, and when the woman confesses that she booked 3 tickets to land in hopes that he would choose to keep his family rather than his job, William promises to return to land with them after his work is done. An hour before the shuttle arrives, Marshal hides a shotgun in a transition locker and once again tries to appeal to the miners themselves for help, but no one is going to be a hero. As the mercenaries arrive, William tracks them down with video cameras while the killers split up and take different routes to his office. William goes out to meet one of them and, while the miners are sitting in the bar, has a gunfight, but gets shot in the shoulder. Losing his weapon, Marshal rushes to a locker in the hallway, but there is no shotgun in it. William manages to get to the police station and he hears footsteps in the hallway and nearly kills the doctor who saw his shooting and came to help him. The woman bandages his wound and promises to lock one of the killers in a sealed corridor, while Marshal puts on a spacesuit to go into space. Lazarus tracks down the assassin and locks the doors at both ends of the corridor. William gets to the right place and destroys the corridor's plating, causing the first mercenary to die from severe decompression. Lazarus then returns to the observation post when Sergeant Ballard arrives there, wanting to know exactly where his superior is. The doctor irritably waves him off, muttering that Marshal went outside. Meanwhile, William, trying to distract the sniper, drops one of the panels down. The mercenary sees it, mistakes it for Marshal, and fires. His bullet pierces the wall of the greenhouse and the man is torn apart. William returns to the airlock, but it turns out that his fight doesn't stop there, because his own colleague, Sergeant Ballard, comes out against him. They fight long and with varying success outside the station on the solar panels, until William manages to rip the hose from the sergeant's spacesuit. The traitor's body falls downward, crashing to the surface of the station. The wounded and exhausted Marshal arrives at the bar where he is seen by the surprised miners and an equally surprised Shepard, who receives a blow from Marshal. Now the chief is facing death at the hands of his own accomplices or imprisonment. Having done his duty, William quits his job and says goodbye to Dr. Lazarus, who rejoices at the revitalization of the mine, while the former Marshal sends his wife a message that his work is done and he will soon be reunited with his family on his way to Earth. The movie reflects the changing human ideas about space in the late 70s, early 80s. The idea of the galaxy as a territory that humans are about to start exploring is emerging. Write in the comments what you think about it.